Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're ready now. Takes a lot of preliminary stuff here. So this is our annual CSU General Information Session. I'm Deacon John Wilson. I'm the Education Enrichment Program Director for West Angeles Church. We're very active in the area of college and life preparation of youth. We call life preparation enrichment. So I'm the Education and Enrichment Director. I found out not too long ago, probably about 6 years ago, and I began seeing things that told me that my job as enrichment director is just as important, especially now with all the most very complicated situations arise getting people into college. The CSU Super Sunday we've been having now for 7 straight years at our church, somewhat interrupted by the pandemic, but we still do a video every year. You're going to hear the video from a Cal State president in just a moment. It's going to last about 3 or 4 minutes. It's a very informative video about our area CSU, CSU Los Angeles. It's funny, even though it's our area school, you'll find out later in the presentation that it may not be the CSU you're most interested in, because that depends on where your high school is. But nevertheless, I think the things they say and are true about a lot of CSUs. It's a very good video, so we'll do it. We've been having these for 7 years. They came to our church maybe 9 years ago and had a big meeting with various Black churches and that came to the meeting, and it was determined that they needed to have a Sunday for underserved students once a year, where those churches could have people from CSU come out and promote and talk about CSU. Now, because I know so much about CSU, I feel that I'm almost a CSU expert. I'm the local person that's giving it to you. And I actually am speaking for another church next Sunday in a youth meeting. But I know a lot about it, and I think I want to share with you. And I want CSU to be a realistic alternative. Everybody won't go to CSU, but I think you need to have all the facts. And I think most students should probably apply anyway, even if they don't end up going to CSU. Here's an overview of CSU. There are 23 campuses that stretch 800 miles from Humboldt State to San Diego State. There's 485,550 students as of the end of 2021. It's the largest public university system in the United States. The most populous campuses are CSU Northridge, which is 41,548 students. It is the largest CSU in terms of population. The least populous campus is CSU Maritime, which you may never have heard of. Some of you may never have heard of it. It's 1,105 students. It's very close. It's up in the Bay Area anyway. Let's see. The hardest to get into is CSU Poly San Luis Obispo, or called SLO. It is, I think it's 15% of students that apply get accepted into the school. It is regularly one of the top 2 public universities in the nation. And there's quite a few of our CSUs that are highly ranked. We have about 7 CSUs that are in the top 40 public universities in the country. It may be 8, I think it's at least 7. They're in the top public universities in the country. There's some surprises in the next 20 schools too as well, where there are about, I think, 7 or 8 CSUs in there too. So 16 to 18 of our CSUs are highly ranked among public universities. There's 56,000 staff and faculty. There's 3.9 million degrees have been given by CSU. Okay. Over 1,000 of our students, we have over 1,000 West A EEP, that's our program, Education Program alumni. We have 86 that are currently in CSU. I may be off by 1 or 2, but I think I'm pretty close anyway. And I have a bunch of students that are getting masters, and some adults I know they're getting doctoral degrees from CSU. I didn't count them in this number. These are only undergraduates. There's a good map of all the CSUs and where they're located. You notice that they're huddled in the major urban areas, although there are a lot of CSUs you'll see in a moment. I'll talk about that are out in non-urban areas. We'll talk about that a little bit too. And you can see they're spread across the state of California. Now, I think I'd like to share with you a short video that I think you'll like a lot. See if I can get in there and get to it. I believe I'll be able to do it. Let's see here if I can figure it out. Let's stop the share here. Okay. Things around. Let's see if I can find it. It's down here, I thought. Okay. Yep, here it is. Stand by. Share it. Share the sound. Okay, here it is. Okay. Here it is.
Good morning, Bishop Blake and the members of West Angeles Church of God in Christ. Thank you for welcoming me and my recruitment team here to share with you virtually. We're here to talk to students about attending one of the 23 campuses that make up California State University system, including Cal State LA, where I serve as president. Students, we want you to consider attending Cal State LA because a Cal State LA education will transform your life and your future. Cal State LA is ranked #1 in the nation for the upward mobility of our students. That means no university in the United States does a better job of taking students from lower income levels and transforming them into high-income earners. At Cal State LA, we help you to achieve so that you can create the future you want for yourself and your family. Your college years are a time to learn, explore, and have fun. At Cal State LA, you'll learn from accomplished instructors who are deeply committed to educating our students. We offer more than 100 majors. Our university is home to the nation's second oldest department of Pan-African Studies. And we recently opened our newest college, the College of Ethnic Studies. Through our many student clubs and organizations, you'll meet new people and build lasting friendships. At Cal State LA, you'll belong to a supportive community. Whether you live off campus or on campus in our new residence hall, you'll feel at home. And we'll ensure that you have the tools that you need to succeed. We provide our students with laptops and hotspots. First-time freshmen and transfer students can also receive an iPad bundle, including an iPad Air, Apple Pencil, and Apple Smart Keyboard Folio. We also offer our students with emergency financial assistance and access to our food pantry and other resources. We care about our students. For those who prefer to learn remotely. This is a tough time for students and their families, but this is not a time to give up on the dream of earning a university degree. Now is the time to get started. Our team will be available later to answer questions and provide more information. I encourage you to take the next step and learn more about Cal State LA. I would love to see you on campus one day.
All right. I think I can stop that. Very good. Okay, that hopefully gives you a little view of what we had, what the president of Cal State has to share. He's a great president. Let's go ahead and finish our session. All right, so we talked about the CSUs up and down the state, and CSULA is one of them. And you're going to learn that each one of these CSUs has an area where they accept students from the high schools at the minimum CSU requirement. I'll get to that in a moment. Here are the most common CSUs we have at West AEEP: CSULA, CSU Bakersfield, CSU Long Beach, Sonoma State, Dominguez Hills, and San Diego State. It's where the great majority of our students come from our program, but we have students that have attended all of the CSUs at one time or another, and right now we have students at 20 of the 23 CSUs. The top advantages of CSU attendance. If you have any questions, you just ask them in the chat or raise your hand. One of my team will let me know, and I'll see you. High number of professional career-based programs, as well as liberal studies programs. So every school will have liberal studies programs, and many of us think that it's true that some of the really high-paying programs are in some of the professional and STEM careers. CSU in general has very great career options, as well as just simple liberal studies programs that help students get ready for those type of experiences, such as teaching, such as working with ethnic studies and things like that in the nonprofit sector. Diversity, it's closer to the ethnic and financial demographic of the USA than most colleges. As a system, that's true. Cost, up to 33% lower than UC, 80% lower than many private colleges, even after financial aid, and nearly no cost for a local CSU. You won't have any out-of-pocket costs. You just use your student direct loan. A high variety of school sizes and locations. It's relatively easier admission for the average to good student. Those are the advantages of CSU admission. Now, you're going to find out that there are some CSUs where you're going to have really good grades to get into. We'll talk about that and why that is. Here's the CSUs. In Northern California, we have CSU Chico and Humboldt State. Where there's an asterisk, it's a non-urban CSU. So the CSUs in Northern California are not in urban areas. The San Francisco Bay Area CSUs, Sonoma State and CSU Maritime, are not directly in urban areas, although Sonoma State is right near Santa Rosa, which has 300,000 people. San Francisco State, San Jose, Sacramento. CSU Sacramento has a new name. I have to correct that. It's Sacramento State. That's their official name. Central California, we have CSU Fresno, which is now Fresno State. CSU Stanislaus and Monterey Bay are not urban schools, as well as Channel Island. They're not considered urban universities. And then CSU San Luis Obispo, which is a fairly major metropolitan area. I mean, it has 400,000 people in it. CSU Los Angeles for LA area schools, Dominguez Hills, San Bernardino, Long Beach, Northridge, Bakersfield, which is I consider it to be non-urban, although it is Bakersfield, and it has about 300,000 people in it. But the area is about 400,000. So I don't know, stretching it, but it's not a traditional urban area. Poly-Pomona and Fullerton, which are considered to be suburban schools. I should say to you here that really, though these are LA area, they're not all accessible as overnight schools. I feel that typically Los Angeles, Dominguez Hills are going to be, and Long Beach are considered to be the ones that are accessible by auto. Northridge, it's a little difficult because of the traffic patterns, but it could work. So the ones that really are schools where you could stay at home and go to school are Los Angeles, Dominguez Hills, and Long Beach. Okay. In the South California, we have San Diego State and Cal State University San Marcos, which is in the north part of San Diego County. It's not an urban area. It's not even really suburban, it's further out. Okay. Where do CSUs fit in? How do they fit into the state's educational plan? Two-year colleges, there's 112 of them, are for all students and for transfer degrees to the CSU and UC. The University of California has 9 campuses, and it takes the top 10% of students. So it's just a matter of GPA. If your GPA is not the top 10% of students at your school, you're probably not going to get into UC. Now, I got a little tougher at UC last year. It looked like it was tougher because all the campuses aren't 10%. Berkeley it varies between 2 and 5. Last year was a 2% year, top 2%. Because all the good students tend to apply to UC, the really good students, more than straight A students, tend to apply to Berkeley and UCLA and Santa Barbara and San Diego. Those are the most difficult to admit UCs. So they're well under 10%, whereas Merced and Santa Cruz are above 10%. So that 10% is an average. So I often tell students they want to go to UC, spread it out, apply to different UCs. California State University is 23 campuses. They take on an average the top 33 to 40% of high school students are going to be eligible for CSU. Some years a little more than 40%. I think last year was a year like that. That's where CSU fits in, the top 33 to 40% of students. Now, that is not to say that students who get into California State can't get into UC. Actually, a lot of them can. You'll see students in the top 5% applying to CSUs and UCs. What does it take to get into CSU? Let's take a close look at that. I'm going to make sure I go really into good detail. And I hope we have a nice spread in grade levels here, because the earlier you learn this, the easier it's going to be for you to guide your student and your teachers to give your students what they need. And of course, you can then make the decisions you need to make to get them ready as a parent. Well, you need to have a minimum GPA of 2.5 for what they call the UC CSU GPA on the transcript. So if you ask for a transcript Monday and look at it, look for UC CSU GPA or weighted GPA, WEIGHTED, and it needs to be 2.5 or above to get into a CSU. Now, you could apply to the wrong ones and not get in. We'll talk about that. Test scores are not required or accepted any longer. So test scores are not required to get into CSU and won't be required through 2025. I believe that it's going to happen. It's going to go on forever. I believe CSU will never require the SAT again. UC, it's a little it's up in the air, and they might require a digital SAT. Remember, it's only A through G subjects, which I'll cover on the next page. How is it computed? It's the cumulative UC CSU GPA for the first 3 years of high school. On the transcripts, it's called, one of the following. Let me see if I can get this around. Okay, here we go. It's called one of the following. Academic GPA, university GPA, or UC CSU GPA, or even weighted GPA. Those are all the GPA we're looking at. On the application, it's classes in progress and planned will be reported on the application. So if in the 12th grade year you're doing your application, you'll put your in progress classes and your planned classes. In fact, the CSU application is a self-report application where you report all your grades. You report them yourself, kind of like taxes, where your tax return is self-reporting. The minimum classes needed for CSU admission. Now I'm playing with the words a little bit here, and you'll see how I do it. Let's talk about math first. You need Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry A and B, and I think mandatory. You need one more year of math. And as an alternative, that's mandatory. Okay, if you can't do the math, as an alternative, 1 year of what I'm going to call quantitative reasoning, meaning maybe a business math class, or it could be some kind of a computer class, computer literacy class, some kind of tech class, computer repair. Some schools offer classes that are alternative computer type classes, but also sometimes another science can be acceptable if it's another physical science as an alternative, a quantitative reasoning class. Okay. I think students should have 4 years, but they'd be more competitive. They just won't get in San Diego State, for example, or a school like that, or Long Beach without the 4 years of math. CSU wanted to change the requirement for all CSUs, but because of the pandemic, they backed off on it. They may return to it or they may not. It depends. English is 4 years, 8 semesters, a mixture of composition and literature. Now, I think that in the 12th grade, students should not be taking only a literature class. They need to do some writing. So maybe they can take a literature class, parents, and do a writing class, like an expository writing class. They need to be writing. When they don't write in that 12th grade year and they get to college, they struggle with freshman English. Lab science, it's usually going to be biology and chemistry, but I've seen other things. I've seen marine biology. I've seen anatomy for the life science, but it has to have a laboratory with it. Physical science, I usually see chemistry, but I've also seen physics. I've seen intermediate physics. I've seen environmental science. These are all physical science. I also saw astronomy, I think, at Culver City High. Okay. We also think there should be one additional general or lab science, although I didn't make it mandatory. When I say mandatory, it's like EEP mandatory. I have no power of my own, obviously. History and social science, 2 full years, 4 semesters, 1 year recommended. Okay. 2 full years, 1 additional year of history or social science would be nice. Foreign language, 2 full years or 4 semesters of foreign language. It needs to be the same language. I'd like to see students take a 3rd year. I didn't mention it here. I think it'd be okay. They would not reject an application because of it, but I think it moves students toward proficiency and a chance of taking that 4th year if they take the 3rd year. You might as well try to be proficient, especially if you're taking Spanish. You need to move on to proficiency. It's going to help you in the job market. Art should be 1 full year of the same art. It's like you take different semesters, different arts. You have trouble with meeting that requirement. But at some point, you need to take a full year of the same art. These are the requirements in high school for admission to CSU. It's called the A through G requirements because each one of these is a paragraph mark A through G of the specification for college requirements for CSU and UC in the state educational requirements. So they call these A to G a lot. There is an elective requirement for 2 semesters. I did forget that. The additional classes above can meet the requirements. So if you have additional history class or additional math class, these can also meet the elective requirement. Let's talk about course validation. I used to have trouble explaining this, but I think I got it down where I can do it in one view graph, then give you examples on the next page. This is confusing to some counselors. Many counselors, I caution you parents, do not understand this. They have your son or daughter taking additional classes. But if you become very knowledgeable of this, you can spot that right away and cause your student to meet the requirement in different ways that are better for your student. First of all, to be CSU eligible, students must get a C or above in each of those A through G courses I mentioned. They got to get a C or above, and they're self-reported on the CSU application. When students get a D or F, they have to make it up in summer school or an approved online program like byu.edu. You have to make it up. You got to make up that D or F. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. Validation means that success are A, B, or C in a future sequence semester of the course where there was a D or an F validates or removes the D or F. For example, if a student gets a D or F in the first semester of chemistry and gets a C or above in the second semester, they don't have to make up the first semester. Counselors seem to miss that all the time. Unfortunately, validation does apply to certain classes, though. Here are the classes where it applies to. It only applies to lab physical science. That's why I picked chemistry, right, as my example. Mathematics and a language other than English. I will give examples in a moment. For example, biology doesn't matter. If you get a D or an F in the first semester of biology, and you get an A in the second semester, you have to make up that first semester of biology because it does not have course validation. Validation is not allowed on that one. But on math, foreign language, and physical science, it does. On social studies history, it does not. Okay? On English, it does not. On art, it does not. But on lab physical science, math, language other than English, you can validate a D or an F with the next semester's work. Summer school, 2-year college, online coursework is the only makeup for other courses, other course A through G categories. So then you still have to do summer school, 2-year college on these other types of courses. Sometimes when a student has had a lot of lack of success in their earlier grade, and they have a whole lot of, say, 3 or 4 classes to make up, counselors should be aware of this. They may not have to make up their physical science, math, or language other than English. May just mean they need to get a tutor and do well from there forward. Again, consult me if you have any questions on that, of course. Let's see an example of course validation. Spanish 1A and B. 1A, the student gets a B. In Spanish 1B, the student gets a D as in dog. Not so good, huh? Spanish 2A, they get a D as in dog. But in Spanish 2B, they get a C, and it validates both of the 2 Ds before because it's a sequence course that's approved for course validation. The student only got a B and a C, but they got them in the right places. They meet the 2-year requirement for language other than English. Let's do another example. A student has already taken French 1 and 2 at another school. So they start at French 3A and they get a B. French 3B, they get a C. That validates their French 1 and French 2. That's through validation, they will have met the CSU requirement. Okay. Algebra 1A, well, I think in the case I saw that before, to go back to this, was a student that was already fluent in French. They came from France. And so they actually knew the French language really well. They only needed to take 3A and 3B and they made it to CSU. But how many kids could do that if they never took French 1 and 2? Probably not many, right? Here's a case that's the most fascinating to me, and it comes up a lot. It came up 3 years ago. A student took 1A and got an F. They took 1B and got a D. They came to our summer program, and they took 2A and they got a C. It was either C or B. I think it was a C. Algebra 2B, they got a B. So that validated their Algebra 1 because they finished Algebra 2 satisfactorily. Then they took Geometry A and got a D, Geometry B and got an F. They stopped coming to our after-school program. So total disaster in geometry, right? But the way math courses are, in pre-calculus A, they got a C. They dropped pre-calculus B and they met the algebra, the 3-year math requirement, because pre-calculus could validate geometry. Turns out it can validate it. That's how validation works. This is an extreme example. In case you're wondering about the student, I made them go, I really suggested strongly that they go to summer school and strengthen their math, and they did, and they're graduating from CSU this year. You're going to need to eventually deal with math in college. Chemistry, there's the example I told you about. Student got a D, they got a B in chemistry and chemistry B. Guess what? They meet the requirement for physical science with the lab. They now meet the requirement. Somebody got kicked out, it looks like. Okay. Give her a chance to come in. All right. Okay. Any questions on validation? You might want to hang on. In fact, we'll make sure we have this presentation available for you in the chat later on. I think I shared it with my team members here, or they'll get it to you after the meeting if they don't. But I want you just let me know if you have any questions as we go. Here's the biology example I gave. It was an F in biology A, a B in biology B. They weren't done. They needed to take anatomy A and they got a C. They met the life science lab requirement. Okay, in the chat, you can see the Super Sunday presentation. You can click on that at your leisure and make sure you save yourself a copy, download a copy for yourself. Thank you, Quinn. It's up there now in the chat if you want to get it. Let's talk about admission area impaction. You should pay close attention this evening if you're downloading. This is pretty important. We're going to talk about admission. People just say impacted. No, we should say the full name. It's admission area impaction. Area impaction means that most CSUs, and let's just say nearly all of them, will first admit students. Well, this is true for all of them, I guess. Will first admit students in their area by high school. And then there are fewer or very few spots, either few or very few, remaining for additional students across the state. I should say there are usually few or very few, but sometimes when they admit from the area schools, they have plenty of slots remaining. And in those cases, the school is not impacted. So in other words, there are very few slots remaining for students, however, we say that school is impacted or there's area impaction on the school. Some schools are more impacted than others. San Diego State is probably the most impacted CSU because they're the only high school for all of San Diego. And they barely have enough spots for those students. So they have a few spots remaining for students up and down the state. Very few, and they have to have very high grades because San Diego State is highly impacted, meaning they don't have hardly any seats once they deal with the area students. CSUs that are not impacted have many spaces for students across the state, and they will probably admit students with a GPA minimum of 2.5. Okay, here's an example of those schools: CSU Bakersfield, CSU Dominguez Hills, CSU Channel Island, CSU Stanislaus, San Francisco State, which has limited and high price housing though, okay? Those CSUs are gonna be easier to admit. I believe Humboldt State actually joined the group this year, Humboldt State also. So those CSUs are not impacted. A student can go with a 2.5 GPA, okay? They are not impacted. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, CSUs that have admissions GPA histories for admission of 2.7 to 3.1, Sacramento State, CSU San Bernardino, Poly Pomona for most majors, and CSU Monterey Bay. You should notice where I said for most majors. I'll explain that in a moment. So these schools all impact by area high school, not by where you live, by your high school. I just mentioned earlier today, CSU LA is our area CSU because where West Andrews is located. But I live in Long Beach, so that would not be my school if I had children. The CSU would be CSU Long Beach, right? So Akia, Sister Liggins is here. That's a good example. Her student's area CSU will be CSU Long Beach. I bet her friends from there too. Same thing for her if that's true. The highest GPA CSUs. CSU San Diego, I think these are kind of in order, okay? CSU SLO, San Diego State, Long Beach, Fullerton, Northridge, San Jose, Fresno State, CSU Los Angeles. You need a GPA of 3.4, 4.2 to get in. That's where this is where they range from in that list. So the students are going to have a high GPA to go to those schools. Long Beach is impacted to students that go to high schools that are not in Long Beach. If your high school is in Long Beach, it's moderately impacted is all. Hope that answered the question. It would be impacted to students whose high schools are not in Long Beach. Long Beach, Bellflower, Lakewood. Okay. All right. Remember, if your high school is in the area of any of these schools, then the admissions GPA will be 2.5. There's your answer there. The exception is Long Beach, where Long Beach area high school students need to have a 2.8. Otherwise, they're recommended for admission at Dominguez Hills. A lot of them end up going to Dominguez Hills. They have an agreement. Long Beach has an agreement with them. Other oddities of impaction. There's some oddities. Number one oddity, CSU Poly Pomona impacts by majors only. They do not have area high schools. Does everybody understand that? It depends on the major, what kind of GPA you need. So if they have a lot of people, a lot of popularity in certain majors, and they do, it's like from animal science at that school, you need to be a 4.0 to get in, because that's one of the majors they're kind of known for, and everybody goes for it. But you don't have to major in animal science to be a veterinarian. I don't know why people think that. CSU Northridge impacts by major. Okay, it's a hybrid. They impact by major even for the area students. So student has to beat area impaction and major impaction to be admitted. So if you're in a high school that's not in Culver City's area, you got to get through area impaction and major impaction. If you have a major, that's very difficult. There's two barriers. Students that are in Northridge's area, like Culver City High, all the high schools on the west side are in Northridge's area. Westchester, they're all in Northridge's area. St. Bernard, they're all in Northridge's area. Those schools will, if they pick a major that's difficult, like TV, video production, business, athletic, physical training, and music production, they pick one of those, it's going to be hard for them to admit also. Hope that explains. CSU Northridge is kind of a hybrid, whereas Pomona is majors only. CSU at Northridge impacts by major, but it's not majors only, it's also with area as well. So CSU Northridge can be a very difficult school to get into. All CSUs impact pre-nursing in some way, and then nursing itself later on. This has great implications. It seems to imply that if you don't have seriously high grades coming out of high school in science and math, then high grades in science and math while you're in college, you probably won't be able to get a 4-year degree in nursing. Fortunately for you, there's two other ways to become a nurse. And I'll tell my 11th grade students that probably in a session very soon, where I show them how to become a nurse. I'll try to advertise it to lower grades too, so maybe they can see the video after the meeting. CSU Poly SLO is the most difficult to admit public university in the United States. It's very selective. Okay, they're most known for their engineering and STEM programs. They also have excellent business accounting programs and applied math. You get the idea, it's a STEM kind of school. How to beat impaction? You might want to, well, you're a 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade parent. How do I beat impaction? Well, you have high enough grades and 1 to 2 AP or honors classes. That's what I recommend. Not too many. Don't get too many AP classes, please. That's a waste of time. I have other videos on that if you ever want to see them. Know which CSUs are impacted for which majors. Google impaction at and your name of your CSU, and they'll tell you the impacted majors. But I pretty much have summarized it here pretty well. Majors aren't really the problem with impaction. It's going to be area. Know which CSUs have which majors. That will help if you apply to the right CSUs. And always apply to your high school's local CSU. That's right. Always make sure the local CSU is on your list. So you'll get in for minimum, you get in because they'll require the minimum GPA. Understanding completely, oh, this is very important. Please know the difference between career and major. Career and major are so different. Don't look for certain majors, look for career paths. If you start looking for majors, it starts getting difficult to get into schools. You get up against the barrier of selectivity. Or you can just ask me. That's a good way to beat impaction. Ask me how to beat it, and given your situation, I can help you out with that. How about the applications and timeline before we get done here? California State University, our application period is October 1st to 20th. So if your student is an 11th grader, you need to get on our email list and you'll be invited to for us to show you how to do the CSU application on time. You actually need to prepare to do it. I would argue that preparations are needed beginning in the summer. They don't require any essay or anything you'll see in a moment. There's the website. The grades are self-reported using a transcript. No essay, no recommendations needed. The transcripts are not required by the schools unless they specifically request it. But you'll need the transcript to do the application, right? If I'm going to do it for you, I need the transcript, the unofficial one. What are some common reasons for non-admission or non-enrollment to a CSU? Well, the most one I see a lot is the CSUs on the list are all highly impacted and the GPA is just too low, right? you're 2.9 and you're applying to San Luis Obispo, San Diego State, Long Beach, Fullerton, you're not going to get in those schools. They're too highly impacted. Your GPA, although it's good, it's too low. Improper major versus CSU. So you're applying to the improper CSUs, and you just don't have the proper list to know who goes where. You haven't researched it enough. Student does not regularly read emails. If you have trouble reading email and setting up portals and all that, I have students every year that miss admissions that way. That's why when you call me this time of year, your 11th grade or 12th grader, I'm trying to find out if the student has been looking and reading their emails. That's usually why they haven't heard anything. They're looking for it in the mail, it's an email. Or they're looking at an email, it's in a portal that they should have set up. Student does not properly set up their portal, speaking of that, using the initial emails from CSU. Then they miss emails that CSU sends them. They get dropped from admission. Grades are improperly reported, big thing. If the grades are improperly reported, of course they won't get in. A to G requirements are not met properly, or the grades aren't replaced properly. All right, so those are the reasons, the most common reasons I see for non-admission to CSU. And we help with this. When you get to 11th grade or 12th grade, we'll submit the CSU application for the student, then teach them how to follow up. But that seems to have really had a positive impact on things. Here's some positives of CSU having no test scores, starting with the class of 2021. And now we know for 2022 through 2025, they're not requiring, as I said earlier. Students with GPAs of 2.5 to 2.8 can definitely make it to CSU if they pick a non-impacted CSUs or CSU. Many would normally have low SATs, many of those that have low SAT scores. I've seen that. Yet they can now get into a CSU. That's one positive, but there's a different situation that could be a negative. Low PSAT and GPA students can focus, they should only focus on GPA. Don't even think about the SAT. Because I feel like they try to go to private school will take away the focus. If their GPA is low, they won't get into private school anyway. UC and CSU accept pass-fail grades for spring 2020, fall 2021, and spring 2021 due to AB Assembly Bill 104, signed by the governor in July under his emergency powers. CSUs are required to accept those pass-fail grades. Because of COVID, students were learning due to COVID online in different types of environments, and it affected a lot of their performances. If parents are willing to take on larger debt than CSU for college, then yes, the CSU would be important. The SAT would be important because you want to take that SAT if it's optional, try to get some kind of money from the school you're applying to. If it's an expensive private college back east, then you probably are going to take the SAT regardless, even if your GPA isn't high enough. But you probably need to be prepared to pay a large amount for college because they won't get a merit award, right? If they're a lower GPA and a high SAT. Negatives. 65% of our students in 2020 anyway would not have gotten into their desired CSU without the SAT score they got. They got it by working with us and being in our SAT prep program. They would not have gotten to CSU or the one CSU they wanted without the SAT, if it just been GPA. So people don't think about that, but that's kind of a negative for minority students who are getting SAT prep anyway. It hurts them. Nearly 33% of our students got into CSU only due to SAT scores, and they had GPAs of 2.2 to 2. That's true. I had a bunch of students like that. These will now need to go to a 2-year college, right? Because if it's 2.2 to 2.5, they won't get in. And they would have got in with the SAT of 1,200 or something. It's always amazed me that students can do 2.2 in their subjects and get a high SAT score. It does imply there's a little bit of, shall we say, laziness there. But it doesn't matter to CSU. They would accept that student and they would push them to the academic center. Well, the last slide I have is the Summer Algebra Institute. It's a CSU program that we've been in for 7 years at West Angeles. It's a summer math enrichment program to advance the math and pre-STEM skills of the student. It helps improve the incoming math skills of CSU students. That's really why they designed the program, to get more students that come to the CSU ready to do math, and it would lower their drop rates, and it has worked. It has worked, actually. It prepares students for their high school 2022 to 2023 math class. So the maths we focus on, and I didn't list them here, I'm sorry, are pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry. Those are the 4 subjects we're focusing on with the Summer Algebra Institute. So if you want your student to be in that program, please watch your email very closely. And I'm proud to announce it looks like we're going to have a CSU Summer Algebra Institute site in the Long Beach Lakewood area. I'm working on that right now, and I'll have an announcement shortly where students in Long Beach and Lakewood can bring their students to take the Summer Algebra Institute. It only runs 2 or 3 hours a day, 4 days a week for 5 or 6 weeks. We'll have that student more than ready for math in the fall. Have some great teachers I'm going to turn loose in Long Beach area. So we prepare them for their 2023 classes. It prepares parents and students for affordable college admissions. We do college tours, information sessions with parents and EEP. When are we going to do this program? June 26th is going to be the orientation. June 27th through July 28th is going to be when the program is done. It's 4 days a week, like I said, Monday through Thursday. The registration for the program will open up on April 1st. Get on our email list at www, oops, I'm missing a W there, .westa-eep.org, or you can email my peeps. You can email me. Probably be better if you want to make sure you get the email. You should email Christina Martinez or Quinn Davis or Bailey Salisbury, and they'll add you to the email list. Okay? Okay, that's all I had, believe it or not. I'll take questions about CSU. I hope it was enlightening. Let me see what we got out here. We've got something we need to check. See how we're doing here. Anybody have any questions? See a few of you joined during the meeting there, right? Nope. Okay, there's nothing in the chat, right? Yeah, let's see. The email addresses are there. I answered the Long Beach question. Any other questions? By the way, that is Long Beach impacted. It's interesting. So 20 of the 23 CSUs are impacted in some way. I assume the question means, is it highly impacted? Yes, Long Beach, CSU Long Beach is highly impacted. They'll have to have really good grades. Will they be meeting for UCs? Yes, I plan on doing a UC meeting. I usually do that in June or July, though, to tell you the truth.
Hi, I have a question. This is Denise. When you talk about your home CSU, is it your residential home or where the children go to school?
That's where the school is.
Okay.
And that's a significant question.
Right, because we live in Harbor City, but they go to school in Long Beach. So then Cal State Long Beach would be their home. Okay.
Which school?
And I just want to say really,
I
want to say thank you. They go to St. Anthony's.
Oh yeah, is that where Keisha goes?
No, Keisha goes to Sarah.
Yeah, Brooke goes to Sarah in Gardena.
Yeah, that's right. I knew that.
So it's Gardena, Long Beach State, or CSU Dominguez Hills?
What's your instinct tell you?
Dominguez Hills.
You're right. So it's totally
Let me tell you, this is so informative. I wish I would have had this when my kids were in the 8th grade.
You think?
Yeah, this would have been a game changer for my son. My daughter's a freshman, my son's a junior, but I appreciate you and all the information. I just really wish I would have had it for him sooner.
Well, you confirm what I'm going to do with this video. I'm definitely going to make sure it gets to my 8th and 9th grade parents. I may even just offer them a presentation. They usually are too busy to come. They should be at these kind of meetings, but most people don't think about this till the senior year, and it's a problem. They made decisions, or counselors have said things to them that aren't true. So that's why I do it. Thank you, Denise. That was great feedback. Anybody else? All right. Well, I will